education is. Actually, they were doing tracking at the 4th grade for kids, and the Americans, after so much in 1945-47, after so much influence and persuasion, they persuade them to move it to 6th grade. And then you know that the Germans, they track kids from the 6th grade. So from the 6th grade, you're going either to technical schools or to general education, which is to be a doctor or an engineer. So we have examples, and because we are aspiring developing countries, we have the best for our societies, the best for our kids. We have to really give them the best, and not to be an experiment laboratory where the kids will suffer and families get lost. So that's what I want to conclude with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar, and thank you, Director Andrada. Before we go to our next presentation, let's all welcome the UNESCO National Commission Secretary General, Dr. Virginia Miralao, and the Director of the UNESCO Center for Lifelong Learning for Sustainable Development, Dr. Zenaida Domingo. Welcome. Our next presentation for this afternoon is the Philippine EFA report by Assistant Secretary Jesus Mateo of the Department of Education, Office of Planning and Development. Asek Mateo.
Good afternoon to all of you. I thought we're going to take a break first, but anyway, I'm just buying some time for the PowerPoint. How long do I have? About an hour. Oh my God, the presentation's about 2 hours. I'm trying to make it quick.
May I make a quick announcement? Our session, as announced by our chairman, Mr. Mel Velarde, is on live streaming. You can look it up at this URL, efaphnowplanet.tv. EFAPHGMR2012.nowplanet.tv. Lowercase. EFAPHGMR2012, one word, .nowplanet, one word, .tv.
Yeah, this is a joint effort of the assessment done by DepEd and Simeo Inutech. Simeo Inutech is our partner. In fact, Simeo Inutech is a member of the National Committee on Education for All. Okay, we know that this started in the 1990s, the Education for All, during the Jomtien conference in, I think, Thailand, and then followed by the Dakar conference in 2000. And finally, in 2003 or 4, the Philippines were able to come up with the second Education for All Master Plan, which contains 9 production tasks. No? The production tasks that is very important really are the ones in red. I'm not saying the others are not, but this is where we need to focus on, especially as we march towards meeting the MDG goal number 2 and 3. Now, from the development of the Education for All Master Plan, the Department of Education came up with the supporting policy environment to implement the 9 production tasks of the Education for All. And this is what we now call, or if you remember, the Basic Education Sector Reform Agenda, containing 5 key reform thrusts. The first thrust is all about the school-based management, and I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with this. The other component, which is very important, equally important, is the one in relation to teacher quality. That's why we have Teacher Education and Development KRT. Then the KRT 3 on the National Learning Strategies, where the mother tongue-based multilingual education is embedded, as well as this current program called K-12. The KRT 4 pertains to the quality assurance and accountability and the monitoring and evaluation. And finally, the organizational development. This is where the DepEd rationalization plan is right now. If you ask me where the rationalization plan is, I'll answer it later on. Anyway, going forward, if you will recall in 2010, early 2010, in fact, 2010, prior to the election, President Aquino made mention about the 10-point education agenda. Notice that most of them are contained in what we now call the Basic Education Sector Reform Agenda, and it supports the Education for All Master Plan. For the first objective under the Education for All, we're talking about functional literacy. Thus far, the functional literacy, incidentally, the FLEMS, the Functional Literacy Education Mass Media Survey, is conducted every 5 years. The latest one was 2008. Notice the big difference in the functional literacy. It went up by 2 percentage points. For basic literacy, it went up by almost 3% or 4%. Okay, on the out of school youth, no, this is a bit of a challenge for all of us, particularly the department, because we've been criticized for not putting a lot of resources to alternative learning system. The reason is simply because the biggest clientele of the Department of Education are really those children in the formal setting. That's why we have a big slice of our budget going to elementary as well as secondary. Our idea of the AFS is a supporting or complementary program to the formal schooling program. This is to distinguish from the alternative delivery modes. The alternative delivery mode is really intended for those school-age population, whilst that of the alternative learning system, the clientele will be out-of-school children, those who are above the school-age population. At the moment, it's at 16. But once we implement the K-12, it will now go up to 18. Okay. Let me jump to the ANE, or Accreditation and Equivalency Tests passers. But mind you, not all of those passers went through the DepEd delivered programs. Some are NGO-led, some are LGU-led. But the good news is that more and more are getting the and passing the alternative the accreditation and equivalency